Hi everyone, it's Michael here, and I'm here with this video on a revision of the present subjunctive. Okay, we've been practicing the present subjunctive for a while, but I thought it would be handy to create this video just to revise the forms. Okay, but what I'm going to do before I start that is I'm going to do a quick revision, 5 minutes or so, on the present indicative. So the present indicative is the regular present tense we use when we're talking about facts or information or regular activities. Okay, and then I'll move on to the present subjunctive. So let me start with a review of the present indicative, the regular present tense. So as you know, we have three groups of verbs. We have AR verbs, where the infinitive ends in AR, like hablar, trabajar, pasar. We have ER verbs, where the infinitive ends in ER, like comer, deber, beber. And then we have IR verbs, where the infinitive ends in IR. So that's verbs like vivir, permitir, mentir, for example. Okay, and the AR verb, the AR group is the biggest group of verbs, and the vast majority of them are regular. Okay, so what we need to do is go through the endings for each person. So I'll do that now. So for AR verbs like hablar, okay, the yo ending to say I do something or I am doing something, the ending is o. So for example, we'll use the verb hablar as an example. So for example, I speak or I am speaking would be hablo. Okay, we take off the AR of the infinitive and then we add on our endings. So take off the AR, that gives us habl, H-A-B-L, and then we add on the endings. Okay, so the ending for the yo form, as I said, is o. So we have hablo, I speak or I am speaking. The ending for the you form, for the to form, when you're talking to one person that you know well, would be as, A-S. So hablas, you speak or you are speaking. For he speaks, she speaks, or you, usted, that's the formal you when you're addressing señor or señora or someone with a title, you would use a. So all you do is take the S away from the as ending, and then a gives you the L and ella form. So habla, he speaks, she speaks, or you, señor, señora, speaks or is speaking. The we form for nosotros, the ending is amos. So we speak or we are speaking would be hablamos. For yous, or all of you, or both of you, that's all one word in Spanish, vosotros. Okay, and the ending for that form is ais. So habláis. Yous are speaking, both of you are speaking, all of you are speaking. And then the ending for they speak they do something or they are doing something is an, A-N. So for the verb hablar, we would have hablan. Okay, so all of those forms we have hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. Okay, now you'll notice that throughout all of those forms, with the exception of the yo form, which ends in an O, you'll notice that there is a letter A in the ending for every form. So as, a, amos, ais, an. Because it's an AR verb, it's essential that that a is there and that it's very clear. Okay. The other thing I want to say about verb endings is that they should be automatic, especially for this present indicative tense, because we've been doing this since the very beginning. So if it's not automatic, my suggestion is that you rehearse them and you practice them and you repeat them just in the normal structure, the normal order, so that they become automatic. So, for example, if I give you the verb hablar, you should be able to go hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. And if you're not able to do it as automatically and as quickly as that, then please rehearse it. Okay, so that's the AR verbs. Let's go on to the ER verbs now. So for ER verbs, like comer, again for the yo ending, I do something, we start with the letter O. So I eat or I am eating, como. Okay, and notice where the stress is. Like the AR verbs, the stress is always on the second last syllable. Okay, so it's not como, it's como. The ending for you eat or you do something is, well, for any ER verb, is es. S. Okay, so for you eat or you are eating, it's comes. Okay, and then same rule, to get the he or she form, just remove the s, and that gives you come. So come for he eats, she eats, or you, senor, senora, eat. Okay, or is eating, are eating. For the we do something, it's hemos. So we eat or we are eating, comemos. For use, it's eis. So again, we have two clear vowel sounds, eis, with the stress on the first one. Okay, comeis, use eat or use are eating. And then for the they do something, it's en. So they eat or they are eating, comen. Como, comes, come. Comemos, comeis, comen. And again, pay attention to where the stress is. Okay, this is the present tense, so that's where we put the stress. Okay, the stress is in the same place as it is in the word present. Okay, it's not present, it's present. Okay, so always keep that in mind when you're thinking about the stress. And then finally, for IR verbs like vivir. So the IR verbs, the endings are mostly like the ER verbs, apart from two forms, the nosotros and the vosotros forms. Okay, so for I live, we have the O ending again. So I live or I am living, vivo. For you live or you are living, vives. Okay, so we've got es again, the same as an ER verb. Comer, comes, vivir, vives. Same rule again, to get the he or she ending, all you do is you take off the letter S from the previous form, so that gives us vive. Okay, so he lives or she lives, vive. And now, one of the ones that changes is the nosotros ending in the IR verbs, so that's not hemos, it's imos. Okay, vivimos. We live or we are living. And the same with the vosotros form, we have a change again, so it's not ais or eis, it's just is. And in writing there will be an accent on the I. So vivis, yous live, or yous are living. And then for the they form, we go back to the ER ending, so we have en again, en. So viven, they live, or they are living. Okay, so now that we have done a review of the present indicative, let's move on to what we've been practicing recently, which is the present subjunctive. Okay, now there are as I said, I'm going to start just on the forms first of all, and the verb endings. And there's basically two very important rules for this. I'm going to concentrate just on regular verbs at the moment, okay? But the rule for this, the first rule that we need is we always start with the yo form of the present indicative. So that's why we need to know that form. We start with the yo form of the present indicative, remove the letter O, and then whatever we have left, then we add our endings onto that. Okay, so that's like the subjunctive stem is the yo form of the verb minus the letter O. So for a regular verb with hablar, there's not really any difference. Okay, so we have hablar, I speak is hablo, And then take away the O, it gives us abl, H-A-B-L. So we have the same stem there as the present indicative. So there's no difference in the stem there. Okay. When we look at other verbs which are a bit more irregular, then it does make a difference. So that's why we have to know this rule. Okay, so we start with the yo form, the I form of the present indicative, take away the letter O, and then we add on our endings. The second important rule for the endings of the present subjunctive is that basically we switch, for most forms we are switching regular endings, present tense indicative endings, okay? So whereas, let's use hablar and comer as examples, okay? And I'm going to start with the to form, the you form this time. So, for the to form, the hablas, okay, we have as as the ending for hablar, and we have es as the ending for comer. Tu hablas, tu comes, okay? And then when I'm talking about switching endings, basically that's exactly what I mean. So the as ending for hablas becomes the comer ending, comas, and then the comes ending becomes the ar ending, becomes hables. Okay, so we're switching the vowel. Okay, so where we normally have an a in ar verbs, we have an e, and where we have an e in er or ir endings, we have an a. Okay, so we're switching the vowels between ar and er and ir. So I'm going to go through, if that sounds a bit complicated, I'm going to go through all the endings in sequence anyway. Okay, so again, I'm going to use hablar as the example here. So the yo form in the present subjunctive, the ending is not o, it's e. Okay, so hable. Okay. For the to form, I was talking about this earlier. So for you speak in the present subjunctive, we have es, hables. For the él and ella forms, or the usted form, we have the same rule as the present indicative actually. So just remove the letter s from the previous form, from the to form, and that will give us the ending. So hable. Okay, now you'll notice, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that that ending, hable, is actually the same as the ending for the yo form. So in the present subjunctive, when we have that hable form, or whatever ar verb it is, when we have that e ending, that e ending could refer to I do something, he does something, she does something, or usted does something. Okay, so that covers a lot of things. For we speak in the present subjunctive, it's hemos. So again, we're changing amos to hemos. So hablemos. For yous speak, again, we change a to e. So instead of ais, we have eis. So eis habléis. Okay, yous speak or yous are speaking. And then for the they form, same thing again. We have en instead of an, so hablen. Okay, so the present subjunctive endings for every form, starting with yo, would be hable, hables, hable, hablemos, habléis, hablen. Okay. Now, as you can see, we have swapped the vowel endings, and that's why it's so important that you have to know the correct endings, because it's the correct vowel that tells us whether it's the present indicative or the present subjunctive, and we have to know which one we're talking about. Okay, so I'll go through those again. Hable, I speak or you are speaking in the present subjunctive. Hables, you speak or you are speaking. Hable, he speaks, she speaks, or usted speaks or is speaking. Hablemos, we speak or we are speaking. Habléis, Yous speak or yous are speaking. Hablen, they speak or they are speaking. Okay. Now you'll notice here that there's not really a difference in translation, okay? Whether it's hablas, present indicative, or hables, present subjunctive, the translation is more or less the same, okay? It still means you speak or you are speaking, okay? The difference between the indicative and the subjunctive is mostly when we use it rather than the translation, okay? So that's the endings for the AR verbs in the present subjunctive. Es, hemos, eis, en. Hable, hables, hable. Hablemos, habléis, hablen. Notice as well, we're still in the present tense. So we have the stress on the second last syllable the same way as we do in the present indicative. We're not changing stress here. The stress is still in the same place as it would be for the present indicative. Okay, so that's the endings for AR verbs. For ER and IR verbs, the endings are exactly the same. Okay, and again, we're switching vowel. Okay, so normally, again, I'm going to start with the to form for the verb comer. So that would be, normally that would be comes, you eat or you are eating. But in the present subjunctive, es becomes as, comas. Okay, now, in the yo form, we have a similar rule to the AR verb. So the yo form, the ending is a, okay, which will also be the same ending for he and she and usted. So, comma, I eat or you are eating in the subjunctive. Comas, you eat or you are eating in the present subjunctive. Comma, he eats, she eats or usted eats in the present subjunctive. Okay, and hopefully by now you'll have worked out that when it comes to the nosotros form for an ER verb, we have a similar thing. So instead of hemos, it's amos, comamos. So comamos, we are eating or we eat in the present subjunctive. For vosotros, it's ais, comais, yous eat or yous are eating. And then an is for the ellos form, an, coman. Okay, so for ER verbs, we have coma, comas, coma, comamos, comais, coman. Okay, and then for the IR verbs like vivir, it's exactly the same again, but the same endings as for the ER verbs. So, viva, vivas, viva, vivamos, vivais, vivan. Okay, so again, for ER and IR verbs, we have exactly the same endings. There's no difference in the present subjunctive. There's only a difference for some of the forms between ER and IR in the present indicative. Okay, so those are the forms for every verb, okay, in the present subjunctive. Every regular verb, I should say, sorry. So, again, I'll give some examples. So for AR verbs, this time I'll use pasar. Pase, pases, pase, pasemos, paseis, pasen. So again, you have to make sure that is clear. For an ER verb, I'll use beber this time. Beba, bebas, beba, bebamos, bebais, beban. Again, make sure that a is very clear. And the same for IR verbs like permitir, permita, permitas, permita, permitamos, permitais, permitan. Okay, so those are the endings, and as you can hopefully have worked out by now, we are swapping the vowels in the different endings between AR verbs and ER and IR verbs. Okay, so I hope that review of the endings has been useful. We're going to keep practicing this as well. I have other examples, and then we'll move on to some irregular verbs. Okay. Okay, so I've done a review of all the forms of the present subjunctive for both AR verbs and ER and IR verbs. As I said, the two important rules to keep in mind for forming the subjunctive is we always start with the yo form of the present tense of the verb, and remove the o, and then onto that we add on our endings. Okay, and then the second rule to remember is that you switch vowel in the ending. So the endings for AR verbs will normally have an e, hable, hables, hable, hablemos, habléis, hablen, and the ER and IR verbs will normally have an a in the ending. So coma, comas, coma, comamos, comáis, coman. Okay, so that's how we form them, and this is Spanish, so of course there are irregular verbs. I'll be talking about those in another video. But I want to talk about when we use this subjunctive. So there are different uses of this subjunctive, and I will be going over them in other lessons, but for now, just because this is revision, I want to mention the main one that we've been using so far. And in most uses of the subjunctive, the translation doesn't change, okay? So canta means he sings or she sings, okay? Canta la canción, he sings the song or he is singing the song, okay? Normally, in the subjunctive form, which would be cante, normally the translation would be the same. It means he sings or she sings, okay? But there is another use of the subjunctive, and sometimes with that usage, the translation is an infinitive. It's to do something. And this is what we've actually been looking at the moment. So we use the subjunctive with the verb querer, the verb to want. Quiero, quieres, quiere. Queremos, queréis, quieren. And we use it when we want another person to do something, okay? Normally with the verb querer, we use the infinitive, but that's when the person wanting is the same as the person doing the action, okay? Quiero cantar la canción. I want to sing the song. Okay, quiero cantar, we have an infinitive. Quieres cantar la canción. You want to sing the song. Quiere cantar la canción. He wants to sing the song. In each of those examples, the person wanting is the person who's going to be singing the song, or the person who would sing the song. But if I want you to sing the song, okay, I cannot use an infinitive. We do that in English, but we can't do it in Spanish. If I want you to sing the song, because the person wanting, I, is the person different from singing the song, you, we have to use the subjunctive. But in our translation, we would use an infinitive in English, okay? So, quiero que cantes la canción. Quiero que cantes la canción. I want you to sing the song. Okay, that's the translation, okay, from the Spanish to the English, but the structure is basically, I want that you sing the song. Okay, because Spanish people, they cannot say what we do in English. They cannot say quiero te cantar la canción. That doesn't mean anything in Spanish. It's a meaningless sentence. So they have to say, instead of I want you to sing the song, we have to say I want that you sing the song. Quiero que cantes la canción. Okay, so when you want another person to do something, or when the person wanting is different from the person doing the action, then we use this subjunctive. So for example, he wants me to work tomorrow. Okay, quiere que trabaje mañana. Okay, but he wants to work tomorrow, so there the person wanting is the person working. Quiere trabajar mañana. Okay, so when the person wanting is the person doing the thing, we use an infinitive. Quiere trabajar. He wants to work. When the person wanting is different from the person who's going to be doing the action, then we use the subjunctive. And as I said, we translate it in English with an infinitive. So he wants us to work tomorrow. That would be, he wants that we work tomorrow. Quiere que trabajemos. We have to go to trabajemos because it's subjunctive. Quiere que trabajemos mañana. Okay, so that's probably one of the most common uses of the subjunctive. Okay, I think that's enough for this revision video. It's a lot of information and we are going to be doing more practice on this as well. Okay, but I think that will do for now. So as I said, remember, we use it when the person wanting is, we use the subjunctive when the person wanting is different from the person who's going to be doing the action. We switch our endings, so AR verbs take ER and IR endings, and ER and IR verbs take AR endings. Okay, so hable, hables, hable, hablemos, habléis, hablen. And then coma, comas, coma, comamos, comáis, coman. Okay, so that's everything for this video. I hope that was useful. If there's any questions, please let me know. Hasta luego.